In this screencast, we'll look at a kind of data definition that we will call an enumeration. We use an enumeration when the information that we want to represent consists of a fixed number of distinct items, such as colors, letter grades, and so on. In principle, the data that makes up an enumeration, the individual elements, could be any type of data, strings, integers, even images, but for this course, we're always going to stick with strings. In the case of enumerations, it's sometimes redundant to actually provide an interpretation comment, and nearly always it's redundant to provide examples since the data definition directly lists out the elements that make up this type of data. So let's look at a task. Suppose we needed to write some functions involving grades. And so one of the first things we'd like to do is come up with a data definition for a letter grade. So what I'm going to say is a letter grade is one of several specific items. So either the string A, or the string B, or the string C. Okay, and the interpretation, let's just say a grade in a course. Alright, so as you can see, the interpretation is somewhat redundant. In fact, examples are going to be pretty redundant. So I'm not even going to write any down, because this type of data consists of exactly either an A or a B or a C as a string. Okay, so now we're at the template, and we'll go ahead and name our template as we do normally, following our convention. Okay, and then the body of the template, it's going to be similar to intervals. Since we have one of several possibilities, we're going to use a conditional first to isolate which case we're in. So we'll have 3 clauses for a conditional. And here, as the question part of each clause, what we need to do is identify exactly which item is this letter grade. Is it an A? Is it a B? Is it a C? So usually with enumerations you end up using an equality function like string equals So we'll want to see, is letter grade equal to A? And the order that you write these doesn't matter too much. And for the answer part, I'm just going to put ... I'm not even going to bother putting the variable itself for an enumeration, because in this case, if you're in this clause, if you end up over here, then you know exactly what that letter grade was. It was the string A. It doesn't hurt if you'd like to, since this is probably the only type of template that wouldn't include the variable name. Just for consistency's purpose, we can add it in there if you'd like. And finally, test if a letter grade is C. Okay, so the template for an enumeration contains the conditional with one clause for each case, and we usually will use the equality operator. Notice that you should generally try to order the clauses in the conditional in the same order as the data definition. Just makes it easier to kind of read between the two. And you'll notice that in templates we always use the conditional form for making decisions. We'll never use an if as part of a template itself. Even if there were only 2 possibilities here, I would go with a conditional just so that we are consistent. And now the point again of this template is that every function that operates on letter grades is going to have the same backbone. It's going to look like this template. And this makes it much easier when there are many of these functions to quickly look at one and understand what it does and how, because we know which part comes from the template and which part actually is unique to that particular function. So now let's consider developing a function on this type of data. I'm going to write here the function bumpUp, which takes a letter grade and produces the next highest grade from the given letter grade. Okay, I'll go ahead and define my stub. Okay, and we'll need to write some examples. So how many examples should we have here? Well, there are 3 possible elements of this type of data, and so we should have at least 3 examples. So here are my 3 examples. I don't need to write down a template again because we're actually going to use the template from the letter grade data definition. So let me paste down here what my stub was and replace the body of that stub with what is in the template. Okay, and now we're ready to fill this in. So we're bumping up a letter grade. We have 3 cases to consider. If that letter grade is A, what does it become? Well, it stays as an A. If it's a B, it becomes an A. If it's a C, it becomes a B. We run our file. Okay, and all our tests pass. Now some enumerations that we will use in this course, they contain a large number of elements. There's so many that you probably don't want to write them all out. And one primary example is keys, or key events, as they'll be called. When we start working on games and animations, we may want to process like the user typing a key on the keyboard. Now there's a whole lot of possible keys that the user might press. So that's basically an enumeration of every single possible key on your keyboard. So for that data definition, we don't need to write out all the cases. We would just describe 1 or 2 and sort of say where the rest come from. And as far as the template for that data definition, also, we're not going to start off with a template that has 100 or 200 clauses in it. Since we understand how the template is generated for those type of functions, we're going to just generate the template as we need it and only include clauses for the keys that we might be interested in.